Well, as always, good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on when you're listening to this. This is the Procast. And always in the Procast, we have a guest, and this guest is very familiar to you guys. Rabindra. Rabindra is back. Welcome back, Rabindra.
Thanks for having me again, Prakash. Always happy to be here. Talk sports, all sorts. This time fantasy, so I'm definitely excited to partake.
Yeah. Always a pleasure to have you on, man. And as as you alluded to, no fancy music today, nothing, because we're in the big set of all the fantasy sports. Fantasy football is probably the biggest one of all of them. I don't think any other sport compares. So this is going to be. I'm going to talk a lot about this shit. Going to talk a lot about fantasy football today, and football preview show will probably be a little bit different in this because that's maybe about who we think that will be in the playoffs, who we think can win a Super Bowl, that sort of thing. But fantasy football, you can have a guy on a last place team give you big numbers. So
Indeed.
it doesn't matter about how well their team is doing. It's an individual performance more so in fantasy than it is when it comes to the regular season.
No, very much so. That's what it really comes down to. Those specific statistics for that player, just how well they perform, obviously. But I think it also, it's just I think it adds another dynamic to the game in general. When it comes to fantasy, watching the game and then watching things happen or not happen.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So before we start talking about who we think about our sleeper picks, who are our where this guy should be drafted and what our thoughts are on that. So a little bit. So Rabindra, I believe you're in. How many leagues are you the commissioner of?
Yeah, well, not too many now. I mean, maybe more before, but this year, just two. I'm just
Okay,
commissioning just two
two
football
commissioners.
leagues.
So, and two very similar leagues or two different leagues. Like what's the similarities and differences between the two of them?
Well, no, they're definitely different. First off, I mean, they're both the only similarity is that they're both head to head, but one is a 14 team league and one is a 10 team league. So that's already a big difference. But
And
I think the other major difference too is that the 10 team league is a two QB league.
and I'm in
So
both of them.
yes, you are.
so
Yes, you are. Yeah.
so so let's dive into that for first. So you mentioned head to head. So for people who are new to fantasy, why don't you explain what head to head is?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's various ways you can play. Well, I guess you could say two concrete ways in terms of competition. Teams playing against each other, competing against each other, and that's either head to head, weekly, which is every week. One team plays another team in that league. Everyone pretty much divvies up these matchups throughout the year, and whoever wins that week gets that win or a loss. And then it's mentioned because there's also a rotisserie style, which is always that's played in all different sports too, which is just compiling statistics, kind of more like everyone against each other all the time. No head to head nature. So that's why it definitely needs to be mentioned because there's all different types of ways. At this point now, fantasy's evolved to where there's various ways to play.
So okay, so head to head, you're playing someone on a week to week basis.
Hmm.
Rotisserie, your team is basically whoever has the most points. You're trying to accumulate the most points to.
Yes,
It's not not head to head. So those are like the two. Those are the two that most people play.
indeed, indeed. For the most part, I wouldn't say. I'll be honest. I don't think football is the best sport for rotisserie. You could play rotisserie style for football. I think it definitely, that type of style. I think fits with other types of sports. But head to head, the way you play, where let's just say it's me versus you this week, and then me versus Roti the next week, right, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. That builds a different level of intensity and smack talk throughout the
Yeah.
year too.
Wow. Roti always gets a shout out. I don't know.
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess I gotta give him. I feel like
Yeah.
people at least know Roti if I say it, so let me
Yeah.
say it, Roti.
If we said his name, nobody know who he was. But so yeah, so talking about okay, so giving you like a little sense of what fantasy is, and then of course you can play for many different things. There's sometimes you're playing for money, sometimes you're playing for trophies.
For sure.
You're just playing for bragging rights.
Indeed.
Yeah, so there are different prizes you can win, and then different punishments as well.
Yeah, I gotta come
Yeah,
up with one. Honestly, we have yet to come up with it. We said we've been talking about it for years. I know you witnessed that.
yeah.
We've yet to come up with like a punishment for last place for my league. We should really do
As long as it ain't me,
that.
because yeah,
Yeah.
it's like when you see some of these punishments that they put on like social media and stuff. Like, yeah, I don't know if I want.
It's a good way to
Yeah,
keep everybody playing.
yeah,
I hate a league where, eventually and over time, guys might get stagnant or just choose not to play,
right. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's get to it. So I know we're competing against each other in two leagues, so I don't want to steal all your information, and how to
It's
compete
cool.
against you. But
I don't mind to
if you
share.
if you're okay, what are your? I remember when I first started playing fantasy football. So like in the early 2000s, like when it like was just I still had dial up, believe it or not. But
Same.
yeah. So like
Maybe not the
I
dial-up part, but
yeah.
still same.
Yeah. I, I remember it being I always wanted to grab back then it was like Peyton Manning was the best or Brett Favre was still around, you
Yeah,
know.
Peyton
You know
Manning was
those
definitely a beast at that time. Yes.
so let's talk about drafting strategies. Do you think it's smart if someone comes in and takes a quarterback in the first round? Like what would you take? What is your like tip for someone who's starting new to fantasy? Who should they go after in like the first rounds or the first few rounds?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. Well, good question for sure. And I guess the first thing I would say that you pay attention to is the type of league that you're in, because that really matters. I mean, at the end of the day, depending on the type of scoring that's set up by whoever the commissioner is, however that goes, that's pretty much to dictate who's the most valuable or would be potentially the most valuable player in your league. And just like how we mentioned, with my leagues, the two leagues that me and you were both in, right?
Yeah.
Both of those leagues, I'm sure you can instantaneously agree, are going to have two different types of valuable players, right? Like that two QB league is going to be a type of league where you want to go and get like that solidified or like really really good top tier quarterback as soon as you can to make sure your team is at a level where it can compete with everyone throughout the like every week. Typically, when it comes to fantasy, running backs, if you ask me, are always most valuable. I mean, when you're playing PPR, I don't know how many people play PPR. I mean, people should be playing PPR style, and let me at least touch on that if you don't know what that is. But that's points per reception. There's fantasy leagues, even obviously when we started in the early 2000s, where that was non-existent, right? You can agree, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, we didn't have that. So now we have that, and it's a great way to compensate for points. That when you're not really earning, at least then. So when you got a running back that can catch the ball, then you're basically getting points in two different avenues because they're already giving you points rushing the ball. So then they can already catch the ball at a high clip, almost like a receiver. And if you find a running back that catches, or has a high level of receptions, you wanna try and get them for sure early on. Guys like Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, these guys could potentially get high targets out of the backfield, especially if their quarterbacks need help. The other players definitely fall in that category, but you want to look for players like that. But then at the same time too, obviously, you want to get those wide receivers because they get receptions. And PPR leagues, you need receptions. So, you want to get those wide receivers that are top tier and can balance and manage your team. Quarterbacks are always really good. At least they always, if you look at every quarterback, even throughout fantasy, they're always compiling a large amount of points. So that's also for the most part because they're just like kind of like the captains of their team and they got to throw the ball, right? But you still want to maximize points in every position. So, you don't necessarily, I see, people going for quarterbacks sometimes too early. You don't necessarily want to do that. It just depends on your league. Running backs, if you ask me, through these whole 2 decades are still as important as they should be,
And so one last before we get into like the players and who we think will be the studs and who to stay away from. Let's talk about the flex position for a
Okay.
minute. The
Yeah, sure.
flex, the flex position here, and in some leagues you can't use a quarter. You can use a quarterback there. You can't use a quarterback. Yeah, like you were saying, it all depends on what your league is set up to be. Um, just look at what would you have as a flex? Do you recommend maybe a wide receiver or a running back in that slot? Like, what do you think, or is it just depending on the matchup?
Really, flexes I feel are definitely more depending on your matchup. If anything, you look at your flexes as like a true flex. Like you think of it as a flex, where it's like, all right, even when as I've evolved into the fancy player that I am today, I've obviously learned from the earlier days not to just go with like certain players just because of names or whatever. Like you really do have to look at matchups. You got to look at who's playing a more favorable matchup than maybe another player that's on your roster, and then you use the flex positions for players like that. And basically putting them in when you know that. Let's say, hey, like I don't know, Devontae Adams is going up against like the last ranked defense. The corners are really bad, whatever defense that is. Then you need obviously you're going to play Devontae Adams all the time, but then you might have one of those lower fringe wide receivers on your bench that probably might be end being a better play that week. A lot of times I'm sure a lot of people play fantasy and then they wish they played this player or they wish they played that player, right? That hindsight, right?
Yeah.
But you got to be not you can't be afraid to just throw the dice. Like seriously, that's why you have these guys on your team. So sometimes it might hurt if you sit a star and they might actually produce, but if they have a bad matchup, it don't wouldn't hurt to use your flex to try and play someone else.
Oh yeah. I've left many. I left many a fantasy stud on the bench
All
for weeks. So yeah, I think not last year, but 2 years ago, I was in a league. I'm in four leagues, by the way.
right, that's
So
I believe I've done
yeah,
six. I think I learned
yeah,
my lesson. So
I'm
yeah.
in four, and this league was 2 years ago. Every week, I could have won my matchup if I had just played one player that I sat
Oh man, that
every single
hurts.
week, and I ended up getting into like the consolation bracket, which is basically you don't want to end up in last place.
Nope.
So so I had to play. I ended up winning, and then once I won in the consolation, I didn't really care anymore because I wasn't going to finish last place. So I didn't care where I finished as long as it wasn't last place. So yeah,
Of
but that
course.
it's 2 years ago. I forget. I mean, so a lot more watching a lot more of these fantasy shows, getting a lot more inside info,
Mm,
and the leagues are really like the websites you're using, whether it's Yahoo or ESPN or whatever CBS Sports, whatever or NFL.com even.
yep.
They're all very good because they're they give you like information and information that's like
Important.
gives you like enough time to set your lineup. Like let's say for example you draft, you have Jonathan Taylor, and Jonathan Taylor is he's playing a 1 o'clock game, but then he gets scratched late. Like let's say at like 11 o'clock, you still have plenty of time to scour the waiver wire, which is something else we should talk about, the waiver wire
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
for sure, for
Yeah,
sure. I mean, I
the
remember when
yeah
there was a time where that obviously wasn't a thing. Like you just
yeah
had to really be on it. Like
yeah
if you were not on it, you were gonna lose because because you weren't paying enough attention. I do applaud. I've seen the evolution of fantasy now to obviously the point where you get these player matchups like right in the app or right there for you to see, right? Or even when you get like the notifications, I just obviously I remember losing matchups sometimes because like you mentioned like a late scratch or something, right? And
absolutely
not being
yeah.
aware. So yeah, it's definitely it's definitely that's I can't say. In all honesty, I can't speak for the other platforms anymore because ever since I started using Yahoo, I've stuck with Yahoo. Like Yahoo is just Yahoo's it for me when it comes to fantasy.
Yeah, the only other one I'm in three leagues that are on Yahoo and one league that's on NFL.com. So it's good you get the and you get the notification on your phone. Like I said, Jonathan Taylor late scratch. You go grab his backup if somebody hasn't already, and if somebody sees that information, if the guy I did this last year to someone, you know, it was a Monday night game, right, and they needed a defense, and I had already they had to, they were just too late to getting the defense.
Oh man.
So I just picked up the defense. So they couldn't grab the defense. And, that's, it's a cutthroat world, man.
It is.
It's
It
just
is. No, you
I
guys.
didn't.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's. I'll be honest. At this point, too, rule number one in fantasy, you need to get your handcuffs. So if you
yeah.
don't get your handcuffs, you're messing up.
You got yeah. I mean, if the person I was playing had picked up that defense, I would have lost that week. So that's why I just like okay, well he hasn't picked him up yet, and I think he wasn't paying. His defense was like on a buy or something. So those are
Yeah,
all things you gotta pay attention. It's a
got to.
cutthroat, especially when you're playing for like we're playing for big
We
bucks.
should we should be
Yeah,
playing for money. People should play for money first of all. I
yeah,
mean, not that you can't play without money involved, or not that you can't play for, let's say, any sort of stakes. Because at the end of the day, I think even like a good friendly fantasy league, someone's still playing for, or some people are still playing for bragging rights, right?
absolutely, yeah,
But at the end of the day, I think you should play for something because it just creates the right level of incentive, and ah, I don't know. I think I don't know, just obviously makes it more interesting. Call it the
yeah,
gambler in me, but I don't really call it gambling if you kind of like really know, or at least
yeah.
you pay attention. I've had all sorts of players participate in my leagues. Now that I think about it, throughout the years, I've even had one that I could say, like, I remember he just got into fantasy just mainly because of the hype and they see others. First of all, don't be that fantasy player that just wants to be included. Like actually watch the sport, like pay attention. That's gonna help you a lot, But like I've seen people just kind of want to get included and see what's going on and be analytical when it comes to numbers. But it's not all numbers, man. You really gotta like. One of the key things I think in fantasy that helps me every year when it comes to winning is being able to have more of a foresight versus a hindsight. Obviously, there's going to be rankings. There's going to be this player is better than that player. This player you should get here, you should get there. But that's not really like the law, right? That's never the law. When can you say even yourself, Prakash, that you've seen? You look at these rankings before the year, before we draft and stuff. Are you telling me those rankings are actually the rankings at the end of the year?
I mentioned him before, Jonathan Taylor. Who thought Jonathan Taylor was
Yeah,
going to be the number one back last year?
yeah,
You
exactly.
know,
So you need to know, in order to have a certain high level of success, you need to be able to kind of pick and see upside. Like, I mean, you're not always going to be right, but you got to look for upside.
oh, one thing before we get in, like we have to talk about the waiver wire. That's
Yes,
very
as you
important.
mentioned, yeah, it
Very
is.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
football by far, yeah, it was so important.
Not only for like a late scratch, but like you were just mentioning about the player ranking. Just because they're ranked, the number one back in preseason doesn't mean they're going to be the number one back. Somebody
Hmm.
may take off, and if you're paying attention, you grab that guy, he can become your starter. So just
Yeah,
because you
exactly.
didn't draft a guy doesn't mean he still can't make an impact on your team.
Oh, for sure, for sure. No, I take a ton of pride. I learned that too. I mean, there's every year there's always going to be players that you're going to be able to get in free agency, on the waiver that are basically going to be players that year. They're gonna be starters or fantasies, like substantial fantasy contributors. That always happens every year. Whether it comes down to injury, what is it? What is it always most likely? A running back gets hurt. What happens? The second string guy comes in. Guy comes in, starts soaking up all that opportunity, and they're usually either on the waiver wire or if an owner's smart enough, they have them already on their bench, right?
Right.
Yeah. So,
And
and then besides that, it's just, just besides people stepping in for opportunities, sometimes it's just, some guys just come out of left field. Rookies. People always got to remember rookies and or young players. Got to think about some of those guys, you know?
and the big one will be quarterbacks. As quarterbacks go down,
Oh, yeah.
make sure you know who their backup is.
Yep.
That's what and then if you're depending on so we play in a two quarterback league, one of the leagues we're in.
Mm-hmm.
So every team is basically going to have about 2 to 3 quarterbacks, right? But in some leagues, you're only drafting maybe two. So the other league we're in is what 12 team, I believe, right?
Yep. No, no,
12
no.
teams,
14, 14.
14. So that's 20.
Yeah.
Oh, so pretty much. Oh, okay, all the quarterbacks,
Yeah.
pretty much
That
the entire
one's
league. Yeah,
standard. Yeah. That one's a standard lineup. What we did in that league, so that everyone knows, is we just got rid of kickers. There's no kickers. So we just got rid of kickers and we just added an extra flex.
okay, no
Yeah.
kickers.
Yeah, no kickers. Remember? We did that a couple years ago. It's
Yeah,
like we got rid of why? Why are we drafting kickers? What are we spending this draft pick on a kicker for.
I usually take whenever
Yeah.
I usually draft a kicker like in the last round. To be honest,
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, that's why I brought up the whole idea over some time with everyone myself. I was like, look, we're spending either our last pick, or if not, some of us I don't even draft a kicker. We just go pick one up.
yeah,
But I mean, come on, like, how great are we? Are we really using draft strategy on kickers? Like, are we spending time to figure out, hey, I gotta get this kicker? You know what I'm saying? Or like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like, are we really doing that? Are we? They at most, what are we getting? 10 points.
yeah,
Like 12 points. So, yeah, not worth it. Get
yeah.
a
So
flex. Yeah.
get a flex in it,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and the kickers, you can drop a kicker. It doesn't like you're not you have to take a kicker based on reputation. You know,
Basically, you're
yeah,
looking at what they did last year,
yeah,
and then okay, they're gonna be the kicker for this team. And then kickers get hurt, just like other players. Kickers get hurt. So,
yeah,
like, I mean, at the end of the day, the way I see it is they average at best 10 points. So, what are we doing here? We draft players that could potentially give us 30 points in a game. The real big games that give us like 40 points or something, right? 50 points. We've all seen
uh,
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's it's good. I mean, in a sense, when you're thinking about kicking, like if you're 10 points back and you have like a Monday night game, you know, and the kicker, you're depending on your kicker now. I mean, come on, to come up with 10 points.
Yeah. So see, and that's
Yeah,
the thing. So then you're already depending on your kicker to pick up that slack when you think about it. Like, that's what I think about. I'm like, man, I could probably put a flex in here. Maybe like a wide receiver that could probably on the low catch a touchdown tonight, maybe get a couple of
yeah,
receptions. And that's over 10 points, obviously. You're right. So
absolutely. So
yeah.
one thing also, know your bye weeks.
Oh yeah.
Bye
Let's
weeks are very, yeah.
Yeah, very important. I'm mocking right now, while
Mm,
we're doing this, and
mm,
I'm making sure I'm watching all my bye weeks.
yeah,
That's one thing. Yeah, you want great players, but you don't want to. One thing about fantasy football is, yes, there's like 13, 14 fantasy weeks now, right? Something like that now,
yeah,
14. So yeah,
mhm,
there's like 14 fantasy weeks, but you can't give up a week. I'm sorry. When guys are like, yeah, like, okay, yeah, screw week 7 because they drafted all these players that are all by week 7 or
yeah,
whatever.
hmm
Nah, you can't give up a week. I guarantee you giving up that week is gonna bite you in the buttocks later
yeah.
on for sure.
That's
Like,
yeah. I mean, if your opponent really wanted to screw with you, they could just go get the backups or get
yeah,
yeah screw with you on that week until. I mean that it's so if you're in a competitive league, I mean that could be like the difference between getting into the playoffs and not getting into the playoffs.
oh yeah, no, I've seen it. I've seen it because, and also depending on playoff seeding or how tie breaks, because there could be a tie, especially right now if the standard fantasy season, because I thought about this a little more too. The standard fantasy season now is 14 weeks. That is a even number. So because it's an even number, let's just say the guy who's at 500 ends up at 7-7, and you got a couple guys that could probably end up at 7. It's easier to tie because you got an even number of games, right? So with that being said, there's going to be a lot more tiebreakers potentially involved going forward. The two QB league though, we did come up with something that at least I wanted to make sure, but we're going to do a 14 playoff and a 2-week playoff in there, so that way there's 15 weeks, and that way there shouldn't be any ties. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like the one thing I would say is that with the two quarterback league, and I like the idea that you came up with to have 4 teams instead of 6 teams make the playoffs.
Yeah, because that's a
Yeah,
majority out of 10. No way.
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, not no way. I've seen it. I'm actually in a league where someone actually lets 8 out of 10 in. I don't even work hard in that league because there's only 2 teams that don't make it. So I saw six is total majority. So the 4, but I think what it does though, I thought about it. That extra week going into week 15, it's still kind of going to be like a playoff week. Those top 4 seeds are, I'm pretty sure, not going to be locked up.
oh yeah, it's gonna essentially be a quarterfinal.
Yeah,
I think so.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna dictate who really plays, who doesn't.
So I hope we, for the you new to fantasy, maybe you joined in a work league or something like that. You're listening, and you're like, okay, how do I win my league this year? Hopefully, we gave you a little bit of a brief synopsis on how these things work. You know, as long as you know your bye weeks, you'll be fine. There are a lot of things. If you listen to the first 25 minutes of this podcast, you'll you'll be fine. Now let's get into it. Let's get into the players, man. Like,
Mm.
okay, just I'm looking at a list here of the top 100 players in fantasy football.
Right now,
Right?
like the top 100.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm looking at a list here,
Mm-hmm.
and I already have an issue
Tell
with
me.
who's number two.
Mm.
Yeah,
Who's
I
who
can
you
I,
got?
I can understand why Jonathan Taylor, he's the number one running back. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
was a beast last year, and it's expected. I think Indianapolis could win the South, but we'll save that opinion for for the other podcast in a couple of weeks, sooner than a couple of weeks maybe. But let's say for who number two? Who do you think number two is?
I'm thinking you're talking about Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah,
Yeah. Nah, yeah, because I think I saw that too.
yeah,
I mean, there's gonna be all these different types of rankings. First off, I'll
yeah.
be honest, I haven't necessarily found one that I want to use yet, but I did see him up there number two. I mean,
So
but what were you gonna say about him? Go ahead. No, I know
no,
you
no,
got something to say. Yeah.
I'm on the Yahoo rankings because that's where we'll be drafting.
What's
I
your
have
drafted? Okay.
three drafts, so that's why I use the Yahoo rankings to see.
Okay.
Christian McCaffrey is the second best fantasy player overall. I don't know, man. This guy's injury prone.
I gotta say he's definitely definitely injury prone. He's hurt me the last couple of years for sure. In other in the
Yeah.
various leagues, so it's hard to say that I even would, but I do see why he's there though. Like I can't think I can't knock that he's there, or like even within, I would say even like the top 10 range. I don't know about necessarily as high as two, just mainly because of his injury history as of late. But obviously when he's playing, the guy is the best fantasy player. Like I still remember it. Even though it wasn't as much last year, it wasn't that much year before, but I remember when he plays, guy just does everything.
Well, what you mentioned earlier, the PPR. I mean, he's a beast when it because he's going to catch the ball.
Yeah,
He's
like
going to yeah.
yeah. So and honestly, I think Baker. If you ask me this year, as long as it just really comes down to health. But if you really look at it, his team, they really need him. Like they really need him.
Like I'm looking here.
Baker Mayfield is a quarterback.
Yeah.
Like he's really not that good.
Jonathan Taylor's the number one back. Week 14 bye, so that's pretty late. But that could be that could hurt you come playoff time, fantasy playoffs. You have him week 14.
Yeah, week
So
14.
that could
Yeah,
be
no,
a
a week 14 bye. Well, week
yeah
14 bye, yeah, it is still the last week in fantasy season though. So
yeah.
basically you just gotta look at it like, all right, you won't have him for the last week. So as long as you are ahead and you don't have
hmm
to you don't
yeah
have to fight for a playoff spot, then you'll be okay with Christian McCaffrey, bearing that he even stays healthy, right?
yeah.
But if you end up having to be in that position where you got to fight for a playoff spot, unfortunately, you will not have your
So
best player.
so Jonathan Taylor's bye. He's the number one fantasy running back.
Okay,
Week 14 bye. Christian
nice.
McCaffrey week 13 bye.
Oh, it was Jonathan Taylor with the 14 by.
Yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
No
Okay.
worry. So
All right. So 13 still, yeah, 13. That's not bad. I mean, I wouldn't. I take 13 definitely over 14 because at the end of the day, you still get that last week with him.
let me give you some. Let me give you top 25 running backs here who they
Yeah, you
have.
you probably have a better list than me. So
Yeah,
go. Yeah.
I've got we spoken about Taylor and McCaffrey. Number 3, Austin Eckler.
Okay.
Number 4, Derrick Henry. And Dalvin Cook is 5. Najee Harris at 6. Joe Mixon at 7. DeAndre Swift at 8, which is okay. I do think the lines will be better, so maybe
Mm. I don't know
mm,
about that one,
uh,
man. I'm not no
DeAndre.
no disrespect to the guy at all. Like
Yeah,
it's just really more so about like I see it. Okay, yes, like I see the potential for him to be this guy, but to be all the way up there, who's right after him? Who's 9?
Nick Chubb,
Yeah, I'll put Chubb over him. Who's after Chubb?
Aaron Jones,
Yeah, I'll put Aaron Jones over him. Who's
oh,
after Jones?
Alvin Kamara.
I would also put Alvin Kamara over him, even though Alvin Kamara does have this whole situation looming. But the
Mm.
last thing I read on him, just so we should talk about him, especially people are going to be here listening about fantasy, because Alvin Kamara is a player that is lower in the ranking where he shouldn't. He's basically where he shouldn't be. If he is
I
playing,
mean,
right?
he was top five. I mean, like I think
Yeah.
even up to last year he was top five. Now
Nah,
he's
yeah,
not.
no. So that's what.
Yeah,
But yeah, but you just said he basically is like what 11th or 12th.
11. Yeah,
Yeah. So Alvin Kamara is a top 3 running back in fantasy as long as he's playing. Especially now with the Saints that they're gonna, like who's the Saints quarterback is still Winston. Am I right?
yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not saying he's bad, but it's just really more so they're just really gonna be relying on Alvin Kamara. And even still with the whole, for those who may not be aware, he has a whole like domestic situation. Well, beyond domestic, but kind of
Yeah.
like like just one of those situations. Not as bad as Deshaun Watson though.
Oh, that's well, yeah. We'll get to him. Don't
yeah,
worry. We'll get to
yeah.
that one.
But
Okay.
but from what it looks
Yeah.
like, just so guys are paying attention, whoever's listening, like yeah, Alvin Kamara looks like he should. Right now, it looks like he should be good. Like he's not having any issues for playing this season. So I would definitely
So
put him over. I'll definitely put him over because yeah, if you're talking about this list, I'm sorry. No, again,
yeah,
no disrespect to Swift. It's just I got the Lions got to prove a lot more to me. Still,
yeah.
even
I'm in agreement. I don't think
you
Swift
know,
should be at 8. I think he's a good back. Don't get me wrong,
yeah,
but
yeah, he's a good back.
yeah,
He's a good back to have on your
but
team. I would put a lot of other players ahead of him though. So like it's
so
just my opinion.
so
Yeah,
let me read you off some other names. There's a guy number 12. I'm really high on this guy,
tell me.
Javonte Williams, out in Denver.
Okay,
I really
okay,
like him. I think that's where Swift should, around that around there is where Swift
sure.
should be. Yeah.
I agree. Continue. Who's that
Then
even after
there's
Williams?
13 is Leonard Fournette,
Okay.
and 14 we got David Montgomery, 15 James Conner, 16. Now this name is kind of surprising. I think he should be lower, but Saquon Barkley's at 16.
Oh man, yeah, I'm
Yeah,
surprised too. I was just listening to all that.
yeah,
Yeah, he's definitely. I'm sorry, he's a sleeper.
yeah.
Oh, he's considered a sleeper at this point based on where where his draft ranking is.
I think last year, coming off the injury, I would not have put him that high where he was, because
Hey, he
last year he
proved
was
it,
like, yeah.
and he proved it because last year he really wasn't that good.
So I think him dropping this year, I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. That could be a big sleeper at 16. You're looking at him, maybe that's like a third round pick, maybe. Scott,
I'll be honest, I've been mocking my pick, our 14, and he's definitely been like getting there even for like my third round pick or fourth round pick, which is crazy, honestly, because his workload and what when you really think about it, like yeah, last year was more of an off year, and he was coming back, like you said. So, I think this year, I don't know. I just feel like I think that's one thing I think people should be doing too in fantasy. If somebody gets injured one year, definitely go for
yeah,
them like the year after,
yeah,
maybe
that's
like
yeah,
come on,
exactly.
like don't get
Yeah,
some trauma now because this guy just got hurt. Because at the end of the day, like what's the chance he's gonna get hurt 2 years in a row? Like, you know what I mean?
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So if
And
you had
then
a sour taste about a player, don't have that sour taste the next year. You know.
you got to factor
Yeah.
in, is the Giant O line any good? Because they're
See,
new head coach.
they call it they like to call it right now a beefed up O line. That's literally what they've been calling it. They've been calling it a beefed up O line based off of what they did at the draft
Yeah.
and I guess adjustments that they've made. I don't know to be honest how great the O line is, but I gotta say as a Jets fan, I'm more confident in the Giants O line right now than the Jets because we already suffered some injuries.
So let me give you some of the rest of the names here.
Yeah.
Okay, Cam Akers is at 17.
Yeah. I would put
Yeah,
like DeAndre Swift in this range right here.
in this
With
range.
James
Yeah.
Conner, Cam
Yeah.
Akers, this range is where I would put Swift. Again, not that he's bad. He definitely catches out the backfield. It's just I don't know how good Detroit's line is either.
Okay, then we've got Antonio Gibson is 18.
Yeah, he's been dropping.
And let me give you a name here that I'm really surprised dropped this low. I think you may know who it is. Ezekiel Elliott,
Oh wow, yes, I'm
19.
surprised. Yeah, he dropped really low.
He's at 19. He's like another guy who was a top 5 back.
He was.
Yeah. Then number 20, you got Josh Jacobs. I think that could be a real sleeper there, to be honest.
Another, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, I remember having him a couple of years ago. Definitely cost me a championship because I chose not to play him because he just wasn't doing that well.
Yeah.
And then like I actually didn't play him in a championship game. I forgot who I played instead, but yeah, I would have won too if I played him. But he was so hit or miss that whole year. This was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I didn't own him last year to be honest, so I can't really say out of experience how well he did. But for him to be ranked that low, that's actually really surprising.
And put Josh Jacobs. I think he's a sleeper for me, to be honest.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
if you
agree
cook
too.
20. Yeah, then you've got Brees Hall. Brees
Yeah.
Hall's at 21. J.K. Dobbins. I don't. Dobbins is
He's
that's
only got hurt. He
Baltimore.
got hurt last year.
Yeah, Baltimore, right?
Yeah, he got hurt
So
last year.
yeah, I have like I think if they're healthy, I mean, we know Lamar really is not a great thrower of the football, to put it nicely.
Hmm.
I think this could be another super for me because
I agree.
they're gonna run that ball.
I agree.
So
I definitely
20,
agree. There's a lot of good
yeah.
mid-tier running back value.
So 23, one of your guy here, Elijah Mitchell, is at top 25 back. Then another name here that I like this low. I mean, Travis Etienne, 24.
Yeah, I mean, I like him, but I'll be honest. Like, I would me personally, I'm gonna stay away from that backfield. That's just me personally. I like
I
to
would,
make life easy,
yeah.
so I'm just gonna, because they have James Robinson. James Robinson has been good as long as he's been able to run too. He's been good. He hasn't been bad, at least in my opinion. So I feel like they're gonna use them both. And I'm like, I don't know who's really gonna be better. And Anthony Scott, he got hurt at the beginning of the year last year, right?
I'm looking. They don't have, yeah. And at 25, you got Damian Harris. So yeah, no James Robinson. I don't see him. So yeah.
Yeah,
So
James
there,
Robinson isn't.
yeah.
He should be right there under Etienne. I would only hope.
It's Damian. So maybe he's a top
Probably like
30 back, but
like
not
top
not a
30.
top.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because you got the 25. Yeah, sure, makes
Yeah, they only
sense.
gave me 25 backs. So,
Yeah, that's cool. That's
they're
cool.
top 25. Yeah, so um just looking at this list, I think there are a lot of sleeping running backs, excuse me, not sleeping running, they're not sleeping sleepers. Sleepers. Here, I'm looking at some of these names here that you can get later on, not even in a first round pick. Not
I
even in the
agree.
first round. You're gonna get some good guys here in the second and third rounds here, top 25 backs. So that's I think a lot of wide receivers may go early on, depending on your draft and where things fall for you, because you never know. You never know who's going to take who.
Our two
Or what?
QB will definitely be a little different because they're definitely I know guys are gonna go for quarterbacks pretty early.
Well, you mentioned it. Let's bring up the quarterback list next.
Yeah,
Let me pull that up. So we just did running backs.
get the whole league. Get the whole league list of quarterbacks in a
Oh, they
sense.
only put a they only put a
The
top 20.
20. Okay,
Okay,
that's
so
fine still. That makes sense. Actually, the last 10 we probably don't even really
and
need to talk about.
I'll be honest. Last year, I almost got killed in our draft because I didn't. I was drafting normally. I was in draft. I was like, okay, I'll take my quarterback later on,
Hmm.
and
And all the good ones were gone. I know
yeah,
it happened to me too.
I ended up getting I ended up having to take James. I like okay, my next two picks have to be. I ended up getting Jameis and Jalen Hurts and Jameis Winston were my two quarterbacks, and
Yeah,
then Jameis got hurt, and I had to like play a backup every single week. Like
yeah. No, I remember that. I think we
yeah,
make a trade. Didn't I trade you a quarterback, or you
I think
traded
I, I
me
think
one?
yeah, I think I traded
Like
for
it was Trey Lance or something, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and he ended up not playing. So
yeah.
so let
That
me
was a big
yeah,
boo boo on my part. I can't
yeah.
lie. Only just because from my standpoint as a commissioner, I didn't realize that two QB with 12 teams without a QB limit would be bad. So these guys, like, there was one guy who drafted four QBs. Like,
Yeah,
you need them all.
he was hoarding them.
So, yeah, horrible.
So okay, so let me give you these names here. Top 20 quarterbacks. This is according to Yahoo, of course. Number one quarterback in fantasy, Josh Allen.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. Number two, Patrick Mahomes. Now, I'm kind of surprised he's number two, only because, I'm just wondering about his weapons around him. I mean, Is Juju Smith-Schuster going to be the top, the guy that Tyreek Hill was? I don't know. So I question that him being that high is number two, but yeah, who knows? Some name here, names here that I'm looking at that just look so they're a lot lower than I would have thought. And there's one name here. When I get to it, you're gonna like, huh?
Hmm.
But number
Let's
three,
go.
Justin Herbert.
All right.
Okay, I can see that. Lamar Jackson at four. I know Lamar helps because when quarterbacks rush for yards, that's a
Yeah,
big get.
he definitely balanced out
Yeah.
his lack of at least his lack of throwing last year. So his last year he definitely threw a lot less than he did the year before in terms of yardage and touchdowns, all that.
So Lamar's at four.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts is five, which I'm kind of surprised about. But everyone's picking Philly to be honest. Everyone likes the Eagles, so let's see to win the NFC
Well,
East.
I mean, Hertz is another one that he could run a bit. He's pretty strong.
Yeah,
Like he's a big,
yeah,
strong quarterback. So that's
yeah.
one thing. And then besides that too, it's just really you got to look at besides the quarterback, you got to look at the weapons. Like that's why I think about that's how I have a certain kind of outlook when it comes to Lamar because I do really like Lamar, but like when I go look at who he's throwing to, like I think his number one option is Rashad Bateman, and Bateman
Yeah,
is a
yeah, they don't.
second year wide receiver if I'm not mistaken.
And then of course we'll get to the tight ends later, but they also got Mark Andrews out there.
Yeah,
So yeah,
technically Mark Andrews is his best option
yeah,
to throw to, right? So
yeah.
then, yeah, I almost forgot about Mark Andrews. So yeah, so then he has Mark Andrews and then Rashad Bateman. After that, the other guys are just all fringe wide receivers, and it's technically the same problem he's had all these years. You know what I mean? Like not having like a stud wideout.
Yeah, I mean, they're a run first team in Baltimore, so
Yeah, I get
yeah,
that, but I
yeah.
personally imagine though, just imagine, even they can still be a run first team, but just have a guy like I don't know like Allen Robinson. Like you know what I mean?
No,
Like
yeah.
imagine if he had Allen Robinson.
If you had an elite back, you're absolutely right. That would
Yeah.
be some.
Yeah,
So
or
they,
elite back.
yeah,
Yeah, or elite back. But I mean,
yeah.
he could run. Obviously, like Lamar Jackson is a guy that's going to pick up and run, and he can have like middling running backs next to him. He just just like I said, just imagine how much better the team would be if they just had like a real threat on the
So
on the sideline, like running down the sideline.
5, 6, we've got Jalen Hurts, Callum. We gave you that already.
Yeah,
7, old man Tom Brady at 7.
yeah. I was waiting to hear him. I mean,
Yeah. Joe Burrow is 8.
I would put Joe Burrow above Tom Brady.
You got Dak at 9, Dak Prescott. Russell Wilson's at 10. And 11, you got Matthew Stafford. Aaron Rodgers at 12.
Wow.
Derek Carr is 13. Kirk Cousins is 14, which I find, how is he only 2 spots behind Aaron Rodgers? But
Sure, yeah.
yeah,
Aaron
yeah,
Rodgers it's insane that he's so low. Even if I know he
yeah.
doesn't have Devontae Adams anymore, but that doesn't matter.
You've got Kirk at 14. Trey Lance is 15.
Wow.
Now, here's a name that I'm totally shocked that he even made the top 20 list. Tua Tagovailoa is
I'm
at
not shocked.
16.
You're shocked? You're shocked
I'm
he's in the top
shocked.
20?
I'm shocked he's a top 20 quarterback.
I'm not.
Trevor Lawrence is at 17. Justin Fields is at 18. Matt Ryan is 19. And Mac Jones is 20.
Wow. That's incredible.
So, if you're drafting a quarterback, looking at some of the names, you can get Brady kind of late, maybe a third or fourth round for Tom Brady, maybe even lower than that.
This is why I love fantasy,
Yeah.
man. They're gonna give you these lists, and everybody's gonna follow these lists, and I love that because I know who to take late. So, so basically,
But I mean, yeah.
but in all honesty, I would put Tom Brady way lower on that list.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, like he's one guy I heard kind of high, and then Trevor Lawrence. Don't get me wrong, like Trevor Lawrence, he should obviously these players should get better. You got to think about like the progression of these players over, after their first season, after maybe even some after their second season, whatever. But Matt Ryan is a seasoned vet. and he's on this Colts team with Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, so he already has a crazy security blanket. I'm sorry, Matt Ryan definitely gets higher, especially in fantasy. He gets up a little higher on that list for me too.
So I mean, he's the 19th ranked quarterback Yahoo has on
That's
there.
bad.
You can get him, maybe 7th or 8th round.
I would
You
totally
know,
use him as my
yeah,
starting quarterback. Yeah,
yeah, he's definitely a starter.
yeah. Like
Don't,
he's gonna
yeah,
get it. He's gonna get it. I'm telling you, pretty much it's gonna be like I wouldn't say it's gonna be ultimately the same thing, but if you ask me, he has weapons. He has guys that he can use there in Indianapolis. They're definitely working, and he still has a good defense. I personally think that's gonna be a good team next year. Or this year. Sorry.
yeah. I mean, they certainly. I mean, they were at one point last season. They were like the team to beat. They were beating up everybody, and then it
Yeah,
just
and they
that
just fell
last
apart.
week, yeah, that last week against Jacksonville, all they had to do was win.
I remember.
Yeah,
Yeah, it just fell apart.
yeah, and then that's what should have had. They should have won, and we shouldn't have had that situation with the Raiders. And if Indianapolis had gotten in, they could have been a scary team, but
For sure.
they choked it away. But
Wentz. Wentz.
no, well, of course, that's
Yeah.
well, he's not on this list, by the way. He's not a top 20
What
quarterback.
Wentz
Yeah,
was. Well, I mean, I don't even know where Wentz is right now. Where is Wentz right now? What
he's
team
in
is he on?
Washington.
Oh, is he their starter?
Yeah, he's a commander.
Oh man. Well, yeah. Nah, I wouldn't worry about Wentz this year anyway. Yeah,
So
interesting.
absolutely. So yeah. So yeah. I mean, so I think if you're drafting, you definitely have in these top 20. You definitely have at least one decent starting quarterback you can go get.
Oh, for
Especially
sure, for
Matt
sure.
Ryan at 19.
Matt Ryan, I'm
I
telling
don't.
you, super
I'm
sleeper.
I'm still not sold on Tua, man. Like Tua at 16. I don't know, but
Nah, I'll put Tua there. You got to
yeah,
think about the adjustments and the progression. That's really what you got to think about. If Jalen Hurts could be that high on the list, then Tua could be on that list. I mean, at the end of the day, you're picking the starting quarterback from every team, and then you're ranking them, right? So there's 30 teams in the NFL, or 32. I don't know, but essentially,
yeah, 32. Yeah,
he should be in that top 20. In terms because he has Tyreek Hill now, he has Waddle, so he has two pretty good targets on his team, and he's just a progressive young player. So I can only expect I should see him provide top 20, at least top 20 production in his position. Like there's other guys who I'm more worried of that are on that list. Like Tom Brady's still a really good quarterback, and then he still has like Mike Evans. They still have Godwin, right?
yeah.
They lost Gronk, so I don't know who their tight end is now. I guess it's gonna be Brait if he's
And
still
they have
there.
like OJ Howard, guys like
OJ.
that.
Oh yeah, they
Yeah.
still have OJ Howard. Yeah, so these guys are
Mhm.
still good tight ends. So Tom Brady still has weapons and guys to throw to. But if you ask me, I think Tom Brady should eventually show some signs of age, so his production should come down. He'll still win games. He's just probably, if you ask me, I don't think he's gonna be like some fantasy stud. He'll have a couple games where he probably busts out some big numbers, but I wouldn't put him that high just because he's on he's gonna probably win again. Maybe, who knows? Yeah, but
I mean,
like just because he's Tom Brady is what I mean, like the name.
I guess the reason Aaron Rodgers is at 12.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. It's just because he doesn't have Devontae Adams.
Yeah,
It doesn't
exactly.
matter. Aaron Rodgers has proven that he is a mother effing beast. Like a
Yeah.
beast. He's proven it with and without players, like all different types of players. So so for him to be 12, oh man, I'm telling you, some guys are really gonna luck out this year. They're gonna end up building crazy cores
Yeah.
with strong running backs and wide receivers, and they're gonna have some stud quarterback that just falls on their lap.
Aaron Rodgers may be that guy. And
Yeah.
I mean, Derek Carr now has Aaron Rodgers' former teammate Devontae Adams. So he may be someone you look at. He's at 13.
Yeah, I really do. I
Mhm.
do really think Devontae. Someone's just telling me. I'm getting this fantasy hunch that Devontae Adams is going to be even crazier over in Oakland.
Oh,
Um,
Vegas. Yeah,
yeah,
Vegas.
I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, sorry. I'm so used to them still being
Yeah,
Oakland
Oakland.
Raiders. You're
Yeah.
right, Vegas. How can I forget?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so though that's your I mean, quarterback wise, One last question, then when we can move on to wide receivers.
Yeah.
Would you use your number one first round pick on Josh Allen?
Oh no,
Okay,
it's
so
just not wise. Yeah.
you would stick to getting a
Yeah.
running back or going right running or whatever you're going to go because I don't want to.
Yeah.
We're in
I
the same
agree.
league, two leagues
It's
together, so I don't
fine.
want to steal your secrets.
It's fine. It's fine. I don't mind. Things change, man. Things
Yeah.
change. I might tell you something now. I might feel something different on the
Oh,
sixth.
you ain't
So
trying to throw me off? Okay.
yeah. But nah. I'll be honest. I'll never. There was only. I'm trying to think if I've ever taken a quarterback in the first round. I think the only time I've taken a quarterback in the first round, maybe even close to the first round, is maybe when I'm picking like back to back, like in the end or something. And then like I felt like this guy is not going to be on his way around when my picks come. So then
Yeah.
maybe I take when my next set of picks come. So maybe I take them now, right? But in all honesty, no, I would never take a quarterback, no matter who the quarterback is. I mean, at one point, maybe Patrick Mahomes is where these quarterbacks they accumulate a lot of points, especially like the top tier quarterbacks. They get like 400 plus points in a season sometimes, right, or something like that, depending on your league, three something. But it's not worth it because then I've seen myself do that, and then you thin out the rest of your roster when you do that. Because obviously, you take this one pick and you pick this quarterback, and then these 20 something picks may occur before your next pick, or maybe if it's right, however many, and then you didn't take a running back or a wide receiver. So then your best running backs gonna end up being a guy like Cam Akers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You
So
wanna you
so you
wanna
don't
get
want that. Yeah,
yeah that
you don't
elite
want that.
guy,
Yeah,
at number your elite back with your
yeah.
first pick.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
no, I agree. I
Yeah.
personally see it that way most of the time. Like if it's not a running back, it's a wide receiver. But someone that that is a high volume guy. Like they just that they're going to be high volume in terms of receiving the ball, or high volume in running and receiving with the running back. So like it doesn't, it hurts when you spend that, and especially remember, quarterbacks are still going to have bad games too. These guys all don't have great games all the time, but quarterbacks gonna have bad games. So, depending on who you take. Last thing you need is your first round pick to be just, I don't know, throw three interceptions one game. It's better you
Yeah.
still have that running back.
I mean, early when I first started fantasy, like I was mentioning in the early 2000s,
Mm-hmm.
like when the fantasy started, I was like still in high school,
Mm-hmm.
and I always used to go with like Peyton Manning or Brett Favre.
That made
Yeah.
sense then.
Yeah.
That made
Hmm.
sense then. Fantasy was a bit different then. The whole
Yeah.
concept was the same, but scoring was different then.
Yeah.
Because back then it wasn't as flexible, and it wasn't as you can say, like, you can adjust now as a commissioner. Where then you could maybe make some minor adjustments if you were a commissioner, but for the most part, the scoring was how it was if you picked a certain type. And then like I do different values for different things versus was standard for the most part. Like I remember even when quarterbacks threw touchdowns, they were like 6 points at first, just like everything else. I made that 4 points in my league, you know. So like you do those things, it's just all these different factors. So Peyton Manning was definitely, I remember that time, but Peyton Manning was definitely a number one, like a first round pick. I remember that for sure. He was at that time in the early 2000s. Peyton Manning was like the only quarterback you took in the first round.
I mean, he was putting like 40 to 50 touchdowns every year.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
him and Marvin Harrison were breaking records,
Yeah.
right? So like I definitely remember that. So because of that high, crazy volume of production, he was obviously worth it. But otherwise, no. Aaron Rodgers probably was there at one point too. Like that's why it still surprises me that he's so low. It's crazy.
Well, I mean, if you're in a league where people just play the projections, you're getting Aaron Rodgers, and you know what you're doing. You're getting Aaron Rodgers
And you're
after
winning.
you build a sick core.
That's what I'm saying.
You're
Yeah.
getting Aaron Rodgers
You
at a
could
late
probably
pick.
you could
Oh
probably even
wow,
go get a tight end. You probably even go get a good
yeah,
tight end even
yeah,
before, and so you'll have a good tight end, a good wide receivers, good running backs, and you'll still get Aaron Rodgers. Like that's crazy. So anybody, I only hope people will listen to this. They go and they utilize that because that's a steal. And Matt Ryan
oh
steal.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
like, I mean, if that's the way you're playing it, right? Now the two quarterback league is different that we're going to be in, but the league, like
yeah,
the standard league the standard league, if you can really build up your core, and then you see Aaron Rodgers sitting there at like what, let's say you in like your sixth or seventh round, and you've already gotten your, two wide receivers, two running backs, your tight end, you know, and you see Aaron Rodgers sitting there at sixth round of your seventh round, and you got a sick core. I mean,
You got to pull that trigger, man.
yeah.
I'm sorry, Aaron Rodgers. I still expect him to have a crazy year. Even if his best wide receiver is Allen Lazard, I don't care. He's
I
he's
mean,
gonna
he
he's
can
gonna find him.
he can make him a Pro Bowler.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how.
he's that kind of quarterback. He's gonna make those guys better. So
So, from quarterbacks, let's go to wide receivers, and Yahoo here
yeah,
has a top 25
let's do
of
it.
the of their top receivers. So number one, no surprise, Cooper Cup.
No, no, it is a surprise that it took this long for him to be this high. That's one comment I'll have. But I'm glad that after, yeah, especially after last year, he definitely should be number one. Yeah,
Absolutely, yeah, he's
yeah,
definitely the number one receiver. And if he repeats, I mean,
he
he
should.
may be worthy of a number one pick.
Nah, no,
Right.
he definitely is. First, like that's why I said it like that. Even when you first brought his name up, because I've been a big Cooper Cup fan for pretty much as long as he's been in the league. He's had like 1 or 2 years where he's gotten hurt, maybe, right? But
Yeah,
I've seen the crazy ability for him to not only catch the ball at a high volume, but just obviously still just like break down these defenses and score, right? So, I knew that he would always have, I always, I viewed him as like my number one wideout last year, even though he definitely wasn't like my first pick. You know what I mean? Because I saw what he could do. So
I
I'm just
had
glad. Yeah.
I had him in another league, and I think I got him. I got him. It was nowhere near like I forget where I got him, but it wasn't a high pick, and he ended up taking me. I got all the way to the semifinals and lost, but
Yeah.
you know,
Nah, but he carried
yeah,
your team, that's for
yeah, he
sure.
carried the game. Yeah,
Yeah, no, he was already really good with Jared Goff. So I already
yeah,
knew that once he got Matthew Stafford, that it was going to be ridiculous. Like that's literally how I saw it. Like once I saw that they made a swap and now he has his quarterback, oh my god! Besides winning a championship, I already knew he was going to be a stud. I'm just glad that I guess he's getting the recognition that he deserves.
So Cooper Cup, your number one.
Yep.
Number two, I think this guy. I think we'll both Justin Jefferson, number
Yeah,
two
I like
receiver.
him, but I don't know if he's
Yeah.
number two. But
Jamar Chase is at three.
Mhm.
Devontae Adams 4.
I'll put him at two.
Okay. Stephon Diggs 5.
I'll put him lower.
Okay. And here's one name that if the 49ers uses Debo Samuel, he's at 6 by the way. But if they use him the
Yeah.
same way where he's a runner and a pass catcher,
Mm.
it'd be huge fantasy points.
Yeah, no, huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got at number 7 Tyreek Hill.
Okay.
Number 8, I don't know about this one. CeeDee Lamb at number 8. I'm just saying it because ahead of some of the guys who I see here,
Yeah, nah,
I
no,
don't
no.
know. Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So CeeDee Lamb is at 8. Mike Evans 9. T Higgins is at 10. So that's two top 10 receivers for the Bengals. Yeah, two top 10 receivers. Wow.
That's really good.
Okay. Yeah.
With a really good quarterback. That's really
Yeah.
good.
And you got AJ Brown, who's in Philly now,
Yeah. I
at
almost forgot
11.
about that.
Yeah. And here's one that I'm kind of shocked he's this low, to be honest. 12. Keenan Allen. Like
Yeah, that is a bit shocking.
that's DJ Moore is at 13. Michael Pittman 14.
I love Michael Pittman.
Jalen Waddle at
Yeah.
15. So Miami, two top 15 receivers. And you got Deontay Johnson at 16. That's because you don't know who their quarterback's going to be.
Yeah, I'll be honest. Like
Yeah.
I like Deontay Johnson.
Yeah.
But it's just personally because of his quarterback situation, it really scares me. So I prefer to stay away from him. That's my opinion.
And there's Terry McLaurin at 17.
Okay.
So same thing with the quarterback situation. You don't know about Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
And you got Darnell Mooney
Yeah.
at 18. I mean, I
Who's
guess I
after
can see
Mooney?
it.
Who's
Yeah,
after Mooney? Tell me just a
Brandon
couple of them.
Cooks.
Yeah, I would stay away from any Texan.
Yeah.
Like any Texan, anybody on Houston.
Now here's a name. Here's a name that I don't I think should be higher, much higher than where he is. DK Metcalf at 20.
Wow.
He's 20. So you're
Well, the reason
yeah.
why is because he doesn't have
Yeah.
Russell Wilson anymore.
He doesn't have a
So that
quarterback.
makes sense. I actually that's amazing. So I'm listening to this whole list. I'm like, I know there's somebody that was here last year that's not here. So like, yeah, but now it all makes sense. Yeah, I totally forgot about that situation. But see, I didn't hear Jerry Judy's name yet. And then Jerry Judy's with Russell Wilson right now. So you're telling me that they have DK Metcalf, even though without, because they might
Also,
have,
yeah.
he might have Geno Smith throwing to him. So they're basically saying DJ Metcalf is at 20 with Geno Smith throwing to him versus where's Judy at?
So let me give you the names ahead of you. Judy is on the list, but let me give you
Yeah.
the names ahead of him.
All right.
Okay. Marquise Brown is at 21.
Wow. Wait, where's Marquise Brown again? Where's he
21.
now? We don't. Where is he?
Oh,
What
where
team
is he?
is
Oh,
he?
what
All right,
team
and
is
I
he
should
on?
know this, but still, it's fine. It's one player. What team's he on now? Because I know he's
Let
not on
me
Baltimore anymore.
let's go down because it's on a list.
So Hollywood
So-
Brown is. I think he's on. Is he on Arizona?
Let's get it down. See, so he's 21. He's the 21 overall receiver according to Yahoo.
But what team? What team?
So he is on the list is coming up. He is on the Arizona Cardinals.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, cool. I was right. Okay, so he has Kyler. So he has Kyler Murray throwing to him. That team is also pretty stacked with like options for him to throw to.
Yeah.
Kinda. So
They're-
wow, so they have him ranked even higher than Jerry. See, this is what I don't understand, and I'm sorry. So like we're talking about fantasy here, and this is probably the biggest and most important thing. The most important thing when you're choosing a fantasy player is their role on the team. You know, like the type of role that they have on the team, which dictates how much work they're gonna get. And the fact that they have Marquise Brown there, even higher than Judy, when Judy's technically the clear cut number one in Denver. And didn't Cortland? I know we're going off here, but didn't Cortland's son get hurt? Did you see that or no? That's the other wide receiver on Denver, Cortland's son, right?
No, I wasn't.
Did you see
Oh,
that?
is it Cortland or is it Pat? I forgot. His name was Patrick. I forgot his name.
Oh yeah, Patrick. That's another. No, that's
Yeah.
another wideout. But they also have this
Yeah.
guy named Cortland Sutton,
Yeah.
and I believe he got hurt.
Actually, I
The
don't know
reason
about that. Yeah, that he got it.
So
Yeah,
the only
I
reason
didn't
why
hear about that.
the only reason why I mention it is just because then Jerry Judy has all these extra targets coming his way. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
From a really good quarterback named Russell Wilson.
So we gave okay. So
Yeah, that's
Marquise
crazy.
Brown 21,
Yeah.
Amon-Ra St. Brown at 22.
What?
Yeah.
Yo, who made this, man? Who made this? Who
This
made
is
Tell me
Yahoo.
who made it. Yahoo? Okay,
Yeah.
whatever. This is you know what it is? This is probably just standard non PPR. And I like to just constantly use PPR rankings anyway. But not everyone plays that. But Amon really because he's on Detroit still, am I right?
Yeah. Yeah. He's on
And
Detroit. Yeah.
Jared Goff is still throwing to him. Am I right?
Yes.
Who else? Who
Oh.
else
You
is
got-
good?
23, Chris
Yeah.
Godwin.
Wow. So
But he's coming off an injury.
he is,
the
but he has
ACL,
Tom
yeah.
Brady.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And then we get to finally Jerry Judy at 24,
Wow.
and Allen Robinson is 25.
Interesting. So now you see, Allen Robinson is basically going to be what Robert Woods was. So you just got to think: is Allen Robinson going to do what Robert Woods did? I think he's capable of doing that, especially when they got a guy like Cup, so like attracting so much attention. It's amazing though that Allen Robinson. There's just some really so it's like guys are really paying attention. There's some real sleepers out here across the board.
Oh,
If you
yeah.
ask me, yeah. Just at least based on where they're ranked, and I already know everyone's gonna go based off of these rankings. The draft ranking is basically like Bible.
I mean, it is. I mean, if you're not if you're not following if you only follow your team, you're not really following the rest of the league. The rankings do help, but then you have to pay attention to who's throwing them the football.
Yeah,
Who else is there? Are they the only target?
You're right.
defenses are going to key on them. So
You,
things like that.
you were right. It was Tim Patrick that got hurt, not Cortland
Yeah.
Sutton. I
Oh yeah, I thought I
apologize.
saw Patrick. Yeah, that he
Yeah,
was one
my
of the guys.
bad.
Yeah,
But I knew someone got hurt in Denver though, right? So
yeah,
then essentially the way I saw it was like, okay, if one of the other wide receivers that I know they're going to be using gets hurt, then he's going to need to be thrown to more. But yeah, Cortland Sutton technically, just to touch back on the whole Denver situation, Cortland Sutton is technically their number one wideout, and then Judy is their number two. And I would still put Judy over Amon Ra and a lot of other these players that I just heard. Like,
yeah.
because you have Russell Wilson throwing to him. So think of it like this: you got a guy like Russell Wilson or Tom Brady or like Justin Herbert, any one of these really good quarterbacks, kind of sort of right, top half, and
Yeah.
they're throwing to you. So now there's a big difference when you have a player like that, a quarterback like that, throwing to multiple wide receivers, because then all those guys are going to eat. Like all those guys, this is a good quarterback, so he's going to obviously have to spread the ball. He can't keep throwing to the same guy. But when you have a guy like Amon Ra that's playing with Jared Goff, and then there's like really no other threat with Amon Ra, then you're telling me that you really think he's going to be more productive. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you get what I'm saying? Especially when
Yeah,
Jared
of
Goff's
course.
not
Yeah,
that good. When Jared Goff's not that good, and then besides
yeah.
him not being that good, there's no other options for Jared Goff to really use besides maybe T.J. Hawkinson.
I mean, from what I've been watching on like NFL Network and like just hearing about what people are saying, and it's I don't know why I don't see it, but a lot of people are very high on the Lions.
Really, I
Yeah, I
mean
don't. I mean,
they have a
yeah,
Hard Knocks. They have a Hard Knocks on HBO. I noticed they're the
yeah,
ones that there's being featured on
yeah.
Hard Knocks this season.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know if that's a little additional press and promotion. I'm not gonna say that I think the Detroit Lions are gonna like suck forever, but I just don't. I don't see how they could be that good this season. You know?
I mean, as long as though number 12 is there up in Green Bay, I don't really see. And the Lions actually
Yeah,
do play the Packers pretty tough. Actually, I shouldn't say that because they
I'm
actually are one of the
sure.
teams. Yeah, they play them actually pretty tough. It's the Vikings that can't get over the Packers or the Bears. The Lions actually do play them pretty decently. So I shouldn't say that, but
I'm sorry.
like
I lost faith in Goff. If anything, like I just think he's like a middling QB. So you can't expect like too much from the guy. Yeah.
I was praying that they traded for the Giants traded for him. To be honest, I'm not a believer in Daniel Jones, but
Really, you
yeah,
rather Goff than Daniel
I'd
Jones?
rather Goff than Daniel Jones. Yup.
I'm not a big Giants fan, but I also
Yeah.
know the Giants had offensive line issues like the Jets for a while. So like,
Mhm.
personally, I think Daniel. I don't know if Daniel Jones is going to be like this crazy great quarterback, but I still think he could be a good quarterback, and especially like how he runs. I guess at least remember seeing him run. Like he can run.
Oh, I
Yeah,
hope I'm wrong about Daniel Jones. I hope
yeah.
that they do turn him into the next Josh Allen, like they claim that they're going to do. But I don't know. I'm not
I don't know.
big on Daniel Jones, to be honest. But
I hear you. I can
let
believe that, man.
yeah, let me give you some. Let me give you the tight end names. So these are the skilled players now. The last set of skilled players you can draft.
Mhm.
Let me give you some names here. Let's see. Okay, number one tight end Travis Kelsey, which I think makes sense because I think he elevates himself now as the number one
Option. Yep,
option there in Kansas City. So I
I
think that
agree.
makes all the sense. Mark Andrews is number two. He's probably the number
Hmm.
one option in Baltimore.
Yep,
So yeah,
makes sense. Yep.
Kyle Pitts is at three.
Wow.
Yeah,
I would say
that
It's not a real weird. It's not a real wow. Like I wouldn't say like it's a wow where it's like he doesn't belong. It's just really more so. It's like this is his second year. It's just crazy what his situation already. His situation basically puts him there at number three,
looks
right?
like
Because
Marcus Mariota is going to be his quarterback. I don't know
see,
about
and
that.
that's why
Yeah,
I say that too. Because Mariota is his quarterback.
yeah.
You know, but in all honesty, if you go look at Atlanta's roster, like I mean, they're relying on Drake London,
They
Byron
lost.
Edwards,
Yeah,
and some guy named
isn't Patterson?
Alameda Zacchaeus, but that's their
Okay,
number three wideout.
okay. Well, well,
Zacchaeus.
yeah. Kyle Pitts is going to see the ball a lot.
He
From
will,
what I heard, yeah. So
especially in the end zone. So
yeah,
yeah, so I believe that. Who's after Pitts though? I'm curious.
Darren Waller.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
So yeah, I could see it. Number 5, George Kittle.
I would put those two guys over Pitts, in my opinion. Not and again,
Okay.
not knocking Pitts. I rather the guys that have other options so they can get open.
Right.
You know, like
Then you have after Kittle at 6, you've got Dalton Schultz
okay,
of the Cowboys. Hawkinson, T.J. Hawkinson. It's so okay. So I mean, if you're paying attention to these if you're going by the Yahoo rankings,
mm.
the Detroit Lions have a top 25 wide receiver, a top 10 tight end, and a top 10 running back.
Mm.
I mean, they should be good. I mean,
They should be a good
yeah,
offensive team, I
yeah.
guess. You know,
You got Dallas Goddard at 8. I think that's a solid pick
Dallas,
at 8.
Goddard, yeah, all right, yeah.
I think. And you got Zach Ertz at 9. I don't even know this one. Pat Fryermuth at 10.
He's on. I believe he's on. Let me just make sure. I believe he's on Pittsburgh. Let me just check real quick because I don't even. I'll be honest. Like tight end. Okay, when it comes to
Yeah.
fantasy, tight end. Yes, he is on Pittsburgh. Tight end is one position that is really like if you don't get like the top 10 tight ends, then don't even worry about it. Like, you know, that's how I
Yeah.
look at it. Like I do. Like if you don't get like the guys within the top 10, and then even still, you know, even the guys that are in the top 10, after you break that, maybe, then the guys, you know, even after the guys after like a top 3 or 4, those first 4 are really like high production tight ends. And after that, everyone just about produces about the same or if not worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, that's one position I've learned, especially early on, that if I don't get like, whether it was back in the day, guys like Jimmy Graham, remember how crazy
Oh yeah,
Jimmy
Jimmy
Graham
Graham.
was?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like Jimmy Graham was a crazy tight end back in the day. So like if it wasn't Jimmy Graham, maybe like Tony Gonzalez, certain tight ends that were like really really top tier, then I didn't even bother. You know, so like because I'm
Yeah.
curious who's on the list now when you continue.
So okay, 11, Dawson Knox.
There you go, number
Hmm.
11. Who is it? Dawson Knox. Did he
You
have a
got
great year last year? What was his stats like last year? I guarantee you he
oh,
didn't even catch 60 receptions.
let's see.
Let's check. Let's just see. Let's see how good the top of my mind is. If he got over
What did
60, I was wrong. I mean,
he
I was wrong,
was
but I'll you know,
okay, so do they have his numbers here?
they should
Let's
show. They
see.
should at least. I just want to know receptions. I know he didn't get that many yards or touchdowns. What it is that you know some of these tight ends up having some good weeks. Dawson Knox definitely had a couple of good weeks last year.
He only had 49 catches last year.
See
587
how many
yards.
catches did Kyle Pitts have? I guarantee you he had at least 70 something, right? So look at the big
Yeah.
drop in consistency from 3 to 10.
Kyle Pitts, let's see. Let's move on up to
Let's see.
Kyle
Let's just see.
Pitts.
Off the top of my head, I can say he had like 70 some catches, probably more.
Let's see. He had 1,026 receiving yards.
Yep, that's what we already know. That's good.
Okay.
How many catches? Let's see if I was right.
Let's see. They don't I'm just reading like they did a little like a paragraph write up on him.
I can pull it up. Let's see. Hold on.
Yeah. They
Let me
didn't put
see.
how many receptions he had.
I got you. Hold on.
Yeah.
I
Wait, did
I got a
it?
depth chart right now here.
1,000 yards for a tight end? That's not bad.
No, that's good. That's what I'm saying for a
Yeah.
rookie. So that's how you already know.
Yeah.
That's why he's ranked so high. Okay,
Yeah.
I was just shy. He had 68 receptions last year, right? So you see
Mhm.
the difference though. He had 68. What did Knox have? Like 40 something.
49, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a big difference. That's already 20 less receptions. That's 20 less points for your team. Besides the yardage, I already know Dawson Knox didn't break 1,000 yards. Like Dawson
He
Knox
almost
probably had
yeah.
like how much did Dawson Knox
Dawson
had? He probably had like maybe like 600.
yeah, just under 600, yeah.
Exactly. So you know, so that's what I'm saying. Like these tight ends. So that's one thing, especially someone new to fantasy. I'm going to tell you right now. You know, look at the tight ends, sit down, look at them all, see who the really like top tier potential ones will be. And if you don't get those 4 or 5 guys, just leave the position alone. I mean, you're going to need a tight end, but just go get one like later, or you're going to end up getting someone at free agency. You know,
Yeah.
somebody's going to mess
So
up and drop somebody. You know, because look at that, Dawson Knox. I guarantee who could be after Dawson Knox that's truly worth having.
so
Cole Komet, is he after Knox?
let me give you the rest of this list here.
Yeah,
So Dawson Knox is 11.
yeah.
Then you got Hunter Henry at 12.
Oh, I almost forgot about Hunter Henry. Yeah,
You got Mike Gesicki at 13.
yeah,
Noah Fant at 14. He's up in Seattle.
yeah,
And then you've got Cole Kmet at 15.
yeah.
So
Yeah. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying? So like, you can believe if you want to believe. If you're a diehard fan and you know maybe something that someone else doesn't know, by all means, then go nuts for these guys. But like I said, if you don't get Kittle, Andrews, Pitts. Who am I missing?
Travis Kelsey.
Travis Kelsey. How am I forgetting him? Yeah, and then whoever maybe number 5 is the fifth
Yeah.
guy in that. If you don't get those guys, forget about it. Don't worry about it. Darren Waller too. I would definitely put. I would kind of put Darren Waller a little higher than Pitts. Like I like Pitts. He was 1,000 yard guy last year. But portion of the season, Pitts had Ridley. Even though Ridley did some stupidness, like he still played for some of the season. So you got to think about these things. If a tight end is the only option, that is not necessarily a good thing. It's a great thing, but it's also not a good thing because then he has no one to take attention away from him.
I mean, it's good in fantasy because
Yeah,
he's going to get
it's
he's going
good
to
in
give you the stats. Yeah,
it's good in fantasy, but even still, as a receiver, I don't know. Like I rather a running back that I know has no competition versus anyone that's catching that doesn't have competition. Because even if it's someone that's catching that doesn't have competition, what happens? Those defenses are going to focus on that one guy. So then when they focus on Pitts, they're going to probably double him a lot. He might not end up getting the catches you think he's going to get. So like Darren Waller has Devontae Adams and a couple other guys over there now. So Darren Waller is more free up. You get what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah, just throw Hunter Renfro in there
Yeah. So that's
with
what I'm saying.
Devontae Adams. Yeah, they're going to be, and Josh Jacobs in the back. I mean that AFC West, that's going to be some division. You know,
It is. It
that's going to
definitely
be
is.
some division.
For real.
But like I said, that's the next podcast. You gotta stay. You gotta wait for that one in a
Right.
couple of weeks, maybe a week or two from now, a little bit closer to the season. But yeah,
Okay.
so this fantasy football. I mean, hopefully we've given you, and all these rankings are based on Yahoo. So, like I said, this is how Yahoo puts them. But if you are an avid football watcher, an avid fantasy football player, you know, and you think that I think that I would rather take Darren Waller over Kyle Pitts or whatever. Go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
These rankings are not set in stone. They're not the end all be all because
Yep.
these rankings they change every year.
No, of course. Besides,
So
besides them changing as they should change every year, right? But I'll be honest, just to piggyback on what you're saying, and if I can give some final thought type advice, I would definitely say to anyone that's playing, regardless of your skill level or regardless of your, I would say knowledge, you go with your gut. Like go with your gut. Don't be afraid. Don't think too much about it. Like just go with your gut. Take who you want or what that specific scheme is that you might have. Just do it. Like don't think too much about it. And then don't use these rankings too heavily. You use them for a basis. Whatever one you choose. There's so many out there, but at the end of the day, you want to create your own rankings. If I give anyone any large piece of advice, is to create your own rankings. Like that makes
no,
sense.
absolutely, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
and if you go into some of these apps, you can actually pre-rank players
Yeah.
on how you
Oh
want
yeah.
them. Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, for
absolutely,
years, they
yeah,
actually allowed pre-ranking. You could set up a
yeah.
pre-rank. I remember telling people who said they wouldn't make the draft, I'm like, look, just try and set up a pre-rank, like an auto pre-rank. So when it starts auto picking for you, it'll start picking the players you want. But a lot of people don't necessarily do it, but I know I've done it. Because like I said, I rank players higher than others. I'm not afraid to do that. Don't ever be afraid to go against the grain. In a
Oh yeah,
sense.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
if I see Aaron Rodgers still there, like in the 6th or 7th round,
Yeah.
I'm taking him, man. That's what you got to do.
That's how you win.
Yeah,
You got to
yeah,
steal. You got to steal. You got to look for
exactly.
steals. That's how you win. There's gonna be, regardless of this is the type of league you're in, draft you're in. Somebody, at least someone, is gonna allow someone to fall somewhere that they should not be. That's
Because
always gonna happen. You
because
know.
just like you mentioned, there are going to be
No.
other guys who you want, who like let's say for example, I may say I want Derrick Henry's my number one pick,
Mm.
right? All of a sudden now, you were expecting, oh, well, Jonathan Taylor was going to go. I thought Jonathan Taylor was going to go number one,
Mm-hmm.
right? So now you're looking at this. Okay, well now Jonathan Taylor just fell into my lap. Do I
Indeed.
take him? And then it sets up now. Christian McCaffrey drops. Austin Eckler drops.
Exactly.
So it depends on whoever has that pick and whoever that person likes. Not necessarily just we're just going off of Yahoo here to kind of give like a sense of order,
Mm.
but it's also it should be a combination of both. It should be your knowledge of who you like and use the Yahoo rankings on who did what last year, because some guys from stat last year may surprise you some of their stats. You may say, "Oh wow, that guy ran for 1,000 yards last year and he scored 15 touchdowns. I didn't know that."
Hmm. Oh yeah,
So
and
yeah,
another thing, screw projections. Don't
yeah,
look at any projections. If I can give anyone any advice too, please don't look at those projection numbers. Don't worry about what anyone, whether it be Yahoo or anyone, projects that a player would do. You should be able to, if anything, kind of, dictate or figure that out just from watching their. I would basically what I'm saying is better you look at their last year stats, like you mentioned, like look at their last year stats, look at what they did last year, like pay attention to and analyze what they did, especially if the numbers may look a little short. Obviously, the numbers might look a little short based on what they did the year before. Maybe that means they missed a couple games, right? You got to take all these things into consideration when you're looking and analyzing. But look at their actual statistics. Don't look at these projections because these projections will screw you, right? So
yeah,
like people, especially someone who doesn't know what's going on and they're just looking, oh, okay, this guy's supposed to get 10 touchdowns this year. Telling you that's not going to happen. I
yeah.
mean, if anything, maybe they're going to end up maybe either superseding that or being way less, right? But it's not going to be that projection. Look at what they actually did because that is way more of a tell of what they can possibly do. You know, like
My last piece of advice for new to fan or people who are seasoned in fantasy: the team you draft is not the team you're going to finish with. You're going to go guys are going to get injured. Guys are going to not be productive. So you may come in here and have a nice draft. You may draft your players who you like, but then at the end of the day, when it comes time to at the end of the season, I should say, and your team is not what you drafted, you know, like I said, guys are going to get injured. Guys are going to be not productive. The waiver wire. I can't stress that enough. Make sure you're paying attention to that waiver wire and pay attention to who's injured, you know who's going to get a starting job. If let's say I don't want to jinx Jonathan Taylor, but I keep using him as the example. If
mm,
Jonathan Taylor, I remember last year in one of the leagues, I had to play Jonathan Taylor and Jonathan Taylor's backup, and they were playing the Jets, and I ran Jonathan Taylor and his backup had like 4 touchdowns between them in the first quarter.
hmm.
So it just you just gotta pay attention. You just gotta keep paying attention to the waiver wire and know who's injured, and just do that. And if you're playing in a strong league, don't let the other players. You have to be on top. Don't think, oh, a guy's gonna be there when I'm ready to go pick him up off the waivers, because 9 times out of 10, guy's already gone.
Oh yeah, no, that's for sure. I agree. And then another thing too. I mean, besides just paying attention to injuries, because that's totally key. I mean, football, if anything, that's where you get a lot of injuries. But besides that, I personally think for at least another piece of advice is try and make some trades. It doesn't have to be multiple trades, but try and trade. In all honesty, that's a great way to get players. Another reason why you want to draft well is just so you have assets. Depth is really important, regardless of whether you're going to actually need the depth or if you can use the depth to get you something that you rather have. You know what I mean? This is people are too close to their players. Like this is fantasy. These guys aren't your actual players. They're not like you don't actually own Devontae Adams. Like you can't be sitting here holding on to him, especially if another team might actually be willing to give you maybe 2 or 3 players for Devontae Adams that you can use. You know, so I think that's one thing that's huge. Know how to move players. I'm never afraid to move players. I make trades in almost every league. If I don't make one trade, I make 2 trades. You know, so if I were to give any advice, try to take advantage of trades. It's just like high buying low, buying high, selling. I mean, like buying low, selling high type of situations. You know what I mean? These players have different values damn near almost every week. You can take a player's high value and use it to your advantage, especially if it's like at that present time. I've traded so many handcuffs for good players because the handcuffs were in control at that time. You understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So these are, so depth. Depth is huge. Depth is huge, not alone just for your team, just in case you get injuries, like how you mentioned, your team may not exactly look the same, right? So you want to be deep, but then besides that, you want to be deep for the simple fact that trade assets. Because at the end of the day, if you really think about it, once your bye weeks elapse, a lot of your players do not matter anymore. So what I mean is that, okay, if you have, let's just say you have Patrick Mahomes and you actually have a guy like, I don't know, Matt Ryan on your bench, right? Like, because remember, Matt Ryan was ranked 19th based on what you just said earlier, right?
Yeah.
So you can easily have Patrick Mahomes and Matt Ryan on your team. But then after Matt Ryan's bye week comes, let's say Matt Ryan's bye week is week 10, and Patrick's bye week was week 7, so you use Matt Ryan for the bye week, and now Patrick Mahomes is not going to have any more bye weeks. Are you going to sit Patrick Mahomes the rest of the year? Are you going to play Matt Ryan over Patrick Mahomes? Are you?
No.
Question.
Yeah.
No, exactly. You're not.
Yeah.
So you have Matt Ryan now, who's been a really good quarterback all year. He's been on your bench. You just used him 1 week. Trade him. Like, somebody's going to need a quarterback probably. Trade him. Like, so that you trade him for, maybe with another player for a really good running back you might need, or a really good tight end you might need, some other position where you either are lacking or you might have injury, because that's a high percentage is going to happen, right?
Well,
So
one more. Oh yeah, so one more piece of advice, just to kind of like piggyback on what you were saying.
Yeah.
Also, it's kind of like pay attention to the other team's rosters.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
like what you were just saying there. Like,
look at what they need.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at what they need, because that's how you make trades. That's how I make trades all the time. Prakash, I know you can second it. Me and you have probably made multiple trades.
We made a lot of trades.
We've made multiple trades because we make it easy for each other.
Yeah.
And that's how you trade, in all honesty. I'll be real. A lot of guys don't know how to trade. So if you do want to trade, be someone that like knows how to trade, like knows how to, like, don't be a somebody that's trying to give away all your crap players for like one good player. Don't be that guy. We all know one guy like that, right? So
we know exactly what you're talking about.
We mentioned him earlier. Mentioned him earlier. So like, don't be that guy. But know and understand the whole exchange of value. You got to obviously give up something. But see, this is where it helps, because you can easily have someone on your bench that you don't need, that someone needs. And especially the handcuffs. Oh man, handcuffs, huge. Another huge. Go get your handcuffs. If you drafted Dalvin Cook, go draft his backup in the end of the draft. If you draft Christian McCaffrey, make sure you draft his backup in the middle of the draft, right? Like, what I mean? Like, go get your running back. If there's anyone that backups matters, is running backs. Everyone else, it doesn't matter. You don't need to go get your backup QB. You don't need to go get your backup wide receiver. Just go get your backup running back. So you need to use bench spots for that. Like, you have to.
Well, I mean, any more fantasy advice you can give?
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot, but I feel like we touch base on most. So
I mean, we've given you player ranking, and obviously, we're just, like I said, we're just going off the Yahoo list, but there are players we may not have even spoken about.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really like a player and you think you're going to go with your gut, like we were saying. Go with your gut.
Go with your gut, man, because you're going to regret it at the end of the day. You're not going with your gut.
Exactly.
You are. So just go with your gut. Because even when you don't go with your gut, the reason why I say is you're going to regret it, because all the guys you ended up picking for not going with your gut are probably not going to be that good.
Yeah.
So just go with your gut.
Yeah, because I mean, I think everyone has a general grasp of watching the NFL, because we get so much football now. We get it on Monday night, Sunday, Thursday, and all these games they're national games now, so we can just turn into TV and we're kind of watching, and then some people have the Sunday package where they get all the games. So
Indeed.
I think everyone has an idea of who can do what just by the eye test. So if you like a player who you watch, go get him. Don't worry about the rankings. Like, if you love,
don't take them in the first round if they're a 5th round pick, though.
Right.
Yeah.
exactly.
Please don't be that guy either.
Like yeah,
Yeah.
I think for I think for the most part, I think everyone goes running back or like a big stud receiver in the first round, But I my strategy, I don't want to give it away, but my strategy is, I always try to get my running backs early, and then I start to build a team.
Yeah, no, it's a good
Yeah,
strategy. It's
yeah,
it's it, honestly probably very pretty much what I do. Like, I mean, at least that's how I like to look at it. I just also look at every, like, wherever your position in your draft, that matters. So, like, you want to mock. That's another thing too. We probably didn't even mention that. Like, we probably mentioned mocks a little bit, but you should mock draft. Like, a lot of people probably just go in and just draft their team. No, like, go mock draft. Go
yeah.
practice. Go
Get
practice. Yeah.
get as much practice as possible. Yeah, and
Yeah.
as long as you know your pick.
Yeah, as long as you know your
Yeah,
pick, yes. Like,
yeah,
in my league, you know your pick. I know my pick.
yeah,
So that's one advantage. That's just we've had this group of guys for at least majority of the group for a while. So that's how we've had it set up. But most cases you don't really know your pick. But then that's why you want to go and mock at different picks. You don't want to go. It's probably too much to ask you to mock at every pick. But in all honesty, you don't need to mock at every pick. You just need to mock it like maybe 3 or 4 picks, because when you go mock it, 1, 2, or 3, like you're gonna get a feel for who's gonna be around between 1 to 5, right? You go mock it like 6 or 7, the middle of the draft, 8, then you're gonna have a feel who's gonna be around those surrounding picks, and then you go mock at the end, like the very end, those back-to-back picks or something. Then you're gonna have a feel who's gonna be around then, right?
yeah,
But it's very important to know that yes, your draft may not go like how all your mocks go, but your mocks are gonna give you some idea how it might go, so you'll be prepared if a player is not there when you were gunning for them, right? Like,
exactly.
so, like, that's what you
Yeah.
really really got to do. That, I think that's another way to prepare.
So so with that said, I mean, I know, hoping everyone who's listening, if you are playing fantasy football this year, good luck in your leagues. Uh, I'll see you in 2 leagues this year, so good luck to both of us. Good luck
Thank
to
you.
you.
Good
Good
luck
luck
to you
to
too
me.
as well.
Good luck. I
I'm
just
coming
I'm
coming for your throat, boy. I'm taking it. It's mine. Yeah. Go ahead.
first 3 picks. I'm taking quarterbacks in that league. Oh
Yeah.
man, get me no. Yeah, that was a good experimental league. To play 2 quarterbacks, something a little different. I once played. This was many years ago. I once played a league where you had to draft a head coach.
What? How do
Yeah,
you, for what kind of statistics did you get? The wins,
for
losses?
for
How'd
wins.
that
Yeah, for
work?
wins.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
So, but you couldn't use the actual head coach name because the Players Association, they were not part of the NFLPA. So
Really?
it would say like New England coach or
Oh.
Seattle coach. You
Ah.
couldn't draft. You couldn't like so you couldn't take Belichick or Pete Carroll at that time.
Interesting.
I think the Seahawks were good.
Yeah,
Um, that was
that's
the Legion
interesting.
of Boom. Yeah,
Yes, remember those days.
yeah, that's when their team. So you couldn't draft. Yeah, you couldn't draft their Bill Belichick. You could draft New England coach, but you couldn't draft Bill Belichick.
I gotta say, that's the first time I've ever heard about something like that when it comes to
Yeah,
coaches. I mean, I've heard of defensive players. I've heard that over the years. I've never played it, but I've heard that some guys have played with drafting, taking one defensive player like to start on your team. You get
yeah.
points for like whether they intercept the ball or get their tackles and half tackles, stuff like that.
Well, I played in the league, and the way the point system was set up in that league was totally beneficial
For a
for
lineman.
linebackers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, because that makes sense. Because again,
yeah,
think about it. They're taking in most of those tackles. If they're
yeah,
not if they're if not a defensive lineman, then a linebacker or something, right? Which I understand, because then if you pick a guy on the outside, like someone who's defending wide receivers, you just gotta hope they tackle them or stop them or intercept the ball.
yeah. And
Yeah,
of course, if they did a sack or an interception, gave you a lot of points. But I mean, there would be some games where you won't even get a sack,
yeah,
and your player, not know maybe get one tackle, so there's no point. But the linebackers, but it all depends on how the point system. That's another thing.
yeah.
Know how you're being, your points are being
Yeah.
distributed.
No, yeah, no, you have
Yeah,
to. I tell a lot of. That's why I mentioned even early in the podcast, man. I was like, look, you gotta know your scoring system, because every commish is not going to do the same things necessarily. Some might go beyond. I've been playing fantasy for such a long time. I've basically been playing fantasy. It's like you mentioned since the early 2000s, but
Yeah.
that's pretty much 20 plus years. Like I've been playing. I'm really not sure if it's 2000 or 2001 in all honesty, but I really feel like it was 2000. So then that's literally 22 years. So I'm playing for a long time. I've seen like all these things change. So like, but you gotta, with people newly getting into it, everyone trying to get involved or being a part of it, there's going to be all these different systems at this point. So you really got to look, like you got to look and see how you're scoring, because that's key. There's no point in you going and getting a quarterback if maybe your quarterback, even a really good quarterback, if maybe quarterbacks aren't scored as well as other positions, right? It's just that simple. Any position in comparison to any other position, right? So
Absolutely, yeah.
yeah, so yeah, got to know those things for sure.
All right, Robbie.
Yep. Well, this is a nice long one.
Yeah,
We
this
did a
is a
good one
nice.
here.
Yeah, it's a good one, and hopefully
Yeah.
you're winning a lot of money, or you're winning your trophy. You know, whatever you win this year. Hopefully, our advice helped you win your league this year.
Hopefully. I would
Yeah,
only hope. If it did, let us know.
yeah.
Let us know.
Let me know.
Yeah.
Okay, Robbie. Well, as always fun to talk to you, man.
Indeed. It's very much mutual pleasure, my man.
All right.
Glad you have me.
Well, good night. Good night, good morning, good afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. And as for us, we're recording this in the nighttime, so good night from us.
Indeed.
And hope you enjoyed it. And we'll give you a comprehensive NFL, preview for the upcoming season. Which, can you believe it? Football is like what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks away, man.
I can't wait for it, man, because I've been
Yeah.
losing so many baseball bets, so I can't wait for football to come back.
Well, I mean, I hope you're not making any bets on the Yankees, man, because
Oh, yeah. Well, not really,
yeah.
but yeah,
Oh,
they
okay.
have disappointed me these last couple of days,
Yeah.
though. For real, like, come
They've
on.
been,
The Rays.
really,
I mean, the Rays
yeah.
aren't horrible, but they should at least took one already.
Well, it looks like they might lose this one again and get
Really?
swept. But
Oh
yeah,
my god. Well, yeah,
losing
I definitely bet on them today. It's okay. It's a couple
losing
dollars.
losing 3-0, and with the way they've been hitting, you have no faith in them to score even one run. So
Bro, that's what I'm saying. I mean,
yeah,
it amazes me. I mean, Kluber's not that bad. He's the pitcher tonight, right?
yeah.
For the Rays. He's
Was
not
a
that
Yankee?
bad.
Yeah, was a Yankee last year.
Oh man. Yeah.
Like, yeah, but it's
Yeah.
not looking good right now. And then it's not looking good. I mean, for the first 3 months, they were smoking teams, and now look at them. They were
That
just smoking
that's
teams.
the one thing about baseball. It's a long
Yeah,
season, so
yeah,
I only hope they still got plenty of time to get it back together. Though.
yeah. I mean that's. I mean, you're lucky that this. They're not ending the season this way.
Exactly. You want to have a
Yeah,
higher
yeah.
up momentum on the
So
way out. So
I mean, hopefully this is just their down period, and then they found it, and then
well, Stanton's out the lineup. I think Lemieux was out the lineup today too, right?
yeah,
So
Stanton. Hopefully Stanton gets back soon. I think they're really missing him.
they are.
LeMahieu, same thing.
Maybe
Yeah,
sorry,
I mean, they're just lost at the plate right now. They're just lost, everybody,
yeah.
and it's not just one player who's lost right now. It's the whole team.
I can
Yeah,
see it.
but okay,
But yeah,
that's a
we
yeah.
digress. That's another.
We
Topic.
digress. That's
Yeah.
another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys. It was a
All right.
pleasure. I know we've been trying to say and hang it up for a minute, but we should
Yeah.
say goodnight. Yeah.
All right. Good night. Good night, and we'll catch you on the next one where we're actually going to do a full breakdown of who we think is going to win the Super Bowl, MVP picks, all that. We're getting all that in the next one. So stay tuned for. Hope you enjoyed this one, and stay tuned for the next one.
Indeed.
All right. All right. Good night, guys.
Good night.